Hello, Dreamcatchers, and welcome to another day in the Writer's Haven. I am your host, V. Helena, and we are actually live at the 2018 Black Authors and Readers Rock Weekend. And with me is the wonderful, I am just over the moon right now. I'm really, really trying to maintain composure because one of my ultimately favorite authors is here with us, Tina McElroy Ansa, to talk to me about her books and to talk about her latest projects. But first, I want to ask you about the bar weekend and how has this experience been for you?
Oh, it's been lovely. One of the perks, I think, of being a writer is that you get to hang out with writers and readers. I mean, these are our people. My librarians, readers, they're my people. Booksellers are my people. But other writers, quite often, people think that we writers get together all the time. We're in each other's kitchen, baking bread and stuff. We don't even see each other. If it weren't for these kinds of things, writers really wouldn't get together. But I got an honor last night, which was just
The Legacy Icon Award?
legacy icon. I understand now when actresses are get awards, or actors get awards, for the icon, and they think, well, gosh, I haven't finished my work yet. But it's a joy when other writers and other people who love writing will acknowledge you. That's really what it is, acknowledge. And I always hate, they say I always got to bring it to race, but it's true. So many women of color don't get acknowledgement. Whether they work at the post office, whether they're bringing you your food, or whether they're the head of the company. So I love that Bar acknowledges writers and does the work of bringing them together, editors and writers and people who are trying to, beginning writers. And because you need some instruction, you need some direction. We don't do it alone. We never do it alone. Yeah, we feel alone sometimes, but we don't do it alone.
It takes a village.
Oh my goodness, it takes a village and a neighborhood and a community and your mama's sister and all it does. It takes an island, exactly. But it really takes a village that's going to work. I just didn't. Can I do a plug for somebody's book? Okay, I just read Bernice McFadden's new book, it's a praise song for the butterflies. Oh my goodness, and it's beautiful. But one of the things that I write in the review, I'm doing a review of it. Oops, I'm not supposed to say that. Okay, we have to take that down. But one of the things is that, the village will fail you sometimes. So you do have to have, your own personal village that you can count on. Yeah. And really the only way to have that village is to be the village. People have your back. I told Sharon from the bar last night that the reason people love her and respect her is that she's had other people's backs. They have your back when you have theirs. Reciprocity, my favorite word. Reciprocity.
Okay, well, tell us, when did you know you were a storyteller? How long ago?
Always, always. I'm blessed. My husband does many things well. He really is. He's not a jack of all trades because he does, and master of none. He's a master of all trades, and I really admire that. But because I have always known just what I wanted to do, just what I knew would make me happy, just what I kind of knew that I was good at. Even as a child, I used to tell stories in the on the playground. I used to when I discovered Hawaii. I remember I was maybe 7 or 8, and I'd never seen Hawaii before. And it just becoming a state maybe. And I used to tell people, "Oh, we're from Hawaii," and they said, "Well, no, I know my daddy, know your daddy. He doesn't he run a place down on Broadway?" And I said, "Oh yeah, yeah." I said, "But I was born there. That was my home, and then we moved here." I would just make up lies. I would make up stories, but I love the whole idea of storytelling. I loved my big daddy, my grandfather telling stories. The people at the place, the people at my father's juke joints and liquor stores. He owned juke joints. All the stories they told, and sometimes they were love stories. And there's a storytelling organization called the Moth. I don't know if you're familiar with it. They're in New York, and they're all over the world now, all over the country. And it's just storytelling. You stand on the stage, you and a microphone, no notes. Yeah, I've done it 3 times, absolutely. But my first story was the first time I made love. And I was talking on the phone, and I had done some storytelling with some friends of mine who were writers, and done a tour of storytelling. But the Moth is like, it's like the Teds. Okay, it's up there. And so I was on the phone with some producers, and they said, "Oh, I hear you. You're really good at this." And he said, "Well, the story has to be personal, and which is fine with me. I didn't care when I was young. Now that I'm. I really don't give a damn, okay? So they were talking about telling a personal story, and I said, well, I could tell you a story about the first time I made love. and it was dead silence on the phone.
Just like when you read the hand I fan with and with in front of all those publishers, the same reaction.
Quiet. And they said it was two women. It was the head producer and a executive, the executive producer and another producer, and they kind of giggled and said, "Oh, that would be great, if you're going to be willing to do that." And it was a wonderful. I kind of planned my first time. I was a very old virgin. I was an older virgin, but I planned the whole thing. I picked out the guy, I picked out the gown, I picked out the night. I did all of that, and it really is a funny story. So I told that story, but it's that's how I always felt. I always felt comfortable telling stories, and I always appreciated telling stories. And one of the things that I said in my that first small story about making love for the first time is that was surrounded by these stories at my father's juke joints and liquor store. So those are the stories they would tell about. Oh, what happened last night, and oh, what man made my toes, all these things.
And they made their way into the novel.
Oh my goodness, they made their way into me, and then they made their way into my writing. Because I would listen to these people, and some of them were winos and pickpockets and juke, just folks who run out who juke joints, and they were never acknowledged. I know those stories would never get out there if I didn't tell them. And I used to find these people fascinating. But I found life fascinating. I mean, one of the things I tell writers is that some writers make themselves writers, decide that they're going to be writers. But some writers are just writers, meaning that their path is just put in a certain way, where you think, I tell young writers to look at their path. Where did they grow up? Did people tell stories around them? Did they always notice colors? Did they always notice details? This is it's a very intricate kind of thing, but it comes together so naturally. It comes together naturally. So some people don't notice it, but I tell people to think about what got them here. Think about their path. Think that somebody ever told them, "Girl, that was good," or think about, "Oh, you're the funniest person I know." That means something. People are telling you who you are. The world tells you who you are, and the world always told me that I was a storyteller. Always. I was good at English when I was in school. I discovered journalism when I was in college, and that's storytelling.
So you didn't go into college knowing that you wanted to take the journalistic route.
No, my roommate, my freshman roommate, who is still my good friend after so many decades, came to college knowing she was from Savannah, and she came to college knowing. She came to Spelman College knowing that she was going to be an editor. She knew, I mean, and I had never thought about journalism. And the only reason that I joined the newspaper as a college student was she shamed me into it. "Tina, you say you want to be a writer, and you're not even over there." And she was the editor of the newspaper. And of course, she was the editor of the newspaper. So, I went over and I took a class at Clark AU. They were only offering it there. I was at Spelman, and we go over there. And I said, "You mean to tell me they're going to pay me?" Honestly, to go out, interview people, because my husband used to say I was the nosiest woman he knew, and then he changed it and said, "You're the nosiest person that I know." And I am. And people don't really stop me. Very soon, no one has ever said, "Tina, too much." I will push you on and on. I will find out everything. My friends send me into situations to find out what's going on. They call me Brenda Starr. But I had all these talents. That's why I say the world tells you who you are. Look at what your talents are. Look at what your strengths are. You don't necessarily, love that, but that's your strength, and that may be what you need, what your purpose is. So I discovered journalism, in college, and I said, well, this is great, and it's wonderful when you're young and don't know the things that you don't know.
Even then, you were trailblazing.
Oh, absolutely. But then, I mean, when we show up, we're trailblazers, and we truly are. Black girl magic ain't no joke. People throw that term around, and it's hashtag Black Girl Magic. And they got the T-shirts. Black Girl Magic is work, showing up, perseverance. Knowing yourself, being that brave voice in the room. I mean, how many times have all of us been the only one of us sitting at the table, and something comes up, and well, if I don't raise my voice, they ain't gonna include us. They're not gonna think about that, and we always step. We rarely don't step up. I won't say we always step up because everybody's not the same. But if you're in the room and you're at the table at this point in 2018, it's Black Girl Magic in the room because we do all the work.
As an editor, do you edit while you're writing?
Well, that's that's sometimes a gift and sometimes it's not. I do, uh, but it's more of a editing in my head. My husband's a filmmaker, and he started out as a cameraman, a news camera person, and because he was shooting stories, one of the things he's very smart. One of the things he learned is about editing, about a story, beginning, middle, and end, those basic things. And he does what I call editing in the can. He edits it, I mean, so exactly. He's thinking, well, we don't need this, or we really need this, or he's able to be. My favorite words is yar. You know what yar means? It's a sailing term. It means you're swift and able to turn on a dime. They'll say a ship, especially a small boat. May not look like much, but she's real yar. She say, and I have friends that I tell all the time. I have friends, that you have to be yar, in this world, and so he's very yar, and he learned that. So he also will see, oh well, this is literally interesting. Somebody will be talking. He said, well, this is the most interesting thing in the whole thing. But let's get a little bit more of her talking. So I do a little bit of that, and it's very helpful to me in terms of just that. That's just that. What do you include? What do you not include? Is this really? Are we really going in the right way? But I do find that you really can't wear both hats at the same time because you never make any progress. So you have to at some point say, well, an editor is going to help me with this. An editor is going to take this. Uh, from me. I'm chuckling to myself because I just turned in a book review, and I knew it was too long, but I knew the editor that I had been working with that gave them the last time, and I said, "Oh, Joey is going to take care of this." I said, "I do," and I actually worked on it too long that it. I went down the rabbit hole. I just had so many ideas, and I couldn't quite get it together. And I said, "Oh well, he'll take care of it." And I really shouldn't have done that, but he did take care of it. That's what an editor does. Goes in and says, this is what it should be. I see where you're going with this, or are you going in this direction because this is what you're saying. So you need a good editor. You always need a good editor. But if you had been an editor, you do bring those gifts and those skills to it. Just not while you're writing. hmm You have to wear one hat at a time, I think.
Okay. Now, in your process of writing, do you outline? Do you plot? Okay.
I also teach. So this is a mini session. You need to write a per se, not an outline, a per se. This is what this book is about. This book is about redemption. It's the story of V. Helena, who has to overcome so and so. By the end of the book, the reader will see so and so. It's simple per se. That's what it's called from the French word, precisely. And also, you write. I think you should always have that. I always give my students to write because it sort of centers them in the book. This is what the book is about because, especially if you're starting, it keeps them focused. But especially when you're starting out, you got a million ideas. You've been writing this book in your head forever, so you keep adding things and you adding things. So at some point, you have to know that. That doesn't belong here, and your proceed helps you with that. Then you write an outline, and I never write a formal outline like one, two, three, A, B. I just write an outline to keep me focused. I usually do middle, beginning, and middle and end outline. Uh, I sometimes it's some who was on the panel with me. I'm blanking out on her name. And Oh, okay. Well, she was saying I want to give. I'm just playing. I know her. I'm just making out on the name. That she does chapter outlines, which are really good idea too. Chapter one, she's born. Chapter two, she discovers so and so. Chapter three, that way. Uh, uh, don't want to be overwhelmed with it. I wrote the book You Know Better, which is sort of an on the road. It's a road, sort of a road trip. Everybody's on a car, moving.
Now, this is one of your new projects.
No, no, this is Ugly Ways.
Oh, this is the sixth, fifth book, fourth book.
Exactly. About Lulu Chandra and her mother and her grandmother. Exactly. Lulu Chandra, who wants nothing more in life than she says, than to work in the background, dance in the background of a music video. Yeah, yes. And it's about her mother and about generations. I really wrote the book hoping that women would talk just what we talked about in the session about women will use it to as an entree to talk to their children. Women don't share themselves as much with their children. I don't think, especially with their girls. And then the grandmothers aren't around to share. And there needs to be some kind of mechanism or some kind of safe place. That's what I always call it. That's what a book is, a safe place to talk about things. To talk about things. But mostly a road trip kind of book. And so I just got a big piece of butcher paper, and I made a road on it, and just at different points. Okay, here she sees the red birds. Here they stop at the McDonald's. Here they stop, and because it was just a visual book to me. So I mean, you go with what works for you, but you've got to have some kind of outline to know this is where I'm starting and this is where I'm ending, and this is how I get there. And the key part is you don't have to end that way. But when you're starting out, you have to have somewhere that you're going.
It's like a baseline, a foundation, and then you can grow.
Okay, I'm in Virginia, but I want to get to D.C. This is the road I'm going to take. And then you get there and go, well, you know what? Look at this. Roads, exactly. Look at that. Let's go over here and eat at this restaurant. Oh, let's pull over to the side. Exactly. Let's go and discover this. I never saw this before. Let's go over and look at this. So that's what the novel is. But you still got to have that road. That's the thing that keeps you centered. That's the thing that keeps you on. Okay.
Okay.
And I also these are my books, and I love them, and they're my babies. But I do want to talk.
Do you have a favorite?
Oh gosh, no. If I did, I wouldn't tell you.
Well, let me.
Like your children. Oh no. My mother's. I love all my children the same, and she would take us all aside, separately, and say, "You're my favorite." Oh, exactly. Of course, I'm the baby, so I really love that.
Well, I do want to ask you one question about the hand I fan with. Just you, it was published in 1996, and it was, I think, at that time probably a topic that wasn't as discussed. Eroticism and spirituality and the combination of the two. But now I'm hearing it everywhere. I'm hearing it everywhere. I read an article earlier this week about a woman who was engaged to be married, but she called off her wedding because the sex with her ghost was so much more fulfilling.
A lot of people sent me that sent me that article. As a matter, I finally posted it because I got so many. There were so many comments in the original post about, oh well, that's Tina's novel. Tina, did you see this? So I had a lot of that. It's a double-edged sword. It's wonderful, I think, to be ahead of your time. And to be fresh and new. That's what you're looking for. But you also sort of miss that wave, when you're in the beginning of, I don't surf, but I'm assuming, when you get that wave, it starts out, yeah, but then, but what you really want to do is to be in the, what that thing is called, like tube. There you go. You want to be in the tube. You really want to ride the wave, and the wave will sometimes come, a little bit later. But the thing about a book is it's always here for you, so it doesn't really matter. People can go back and read it. And people who've read it, a lot of people said they read it when it first came out. They go back and read it. It's a lot of wisdom in this book, and I say that really without ego, because there are things in there that I read and go, gosh, that's interesting. I should be thinking about that. And I do believe spirit comes through in certain ways, especially when I'm writing about spirit. But it's sort of a natural eroticism and spirituality, and not just even spirituality, but the occult, sort of. I hate using that word because that's not really what I mean. But we talked about the new genre of, a new genre, they call speculative fiction now, which is science fiction and all the rest. And it's always a little bit of eroticism in all those books. Don't you find that? There's a little bit, even if it's not discussed at all, there's always that sense of the nuance. It is, and it's sort of. But yeah, I wanted to write a really sexy novel. I wanted to be black people. I wanted it to be, just all on the page. I wanted it to be lush, and and all the rest. In writing about it, I realized, well, that's really not what the book is about.
It's not. It's about Lena. It's about her
Learning who she is, accepting who she is, her growth. Has to learn how to give. That was so key to me in writing this. That women, especially women of color, but women period, give so much. They look up And as you said earlier, they're bitter because they have given out, and people take it for granted after a while. It's
Well,
just so.
let's talk about your new projects. Okay.
I've never done this before. I'm working on two books at the same time, and they just yeah, I just never. And I think
How's it working out for you
the
though?
way that I'm doing is one is fiction and one is nonfiction. I'm sure I could not have done it otherwise. I really like to devote myself to the fiction when I'm devoting, but both of them came up, and the I was working on the fiction is my sixth novel from here on out, and it's the main character in Baby of the Family, which is my first, and Lena McPherson is the main character in Baby of the Family. She's the baby of the family, but she meets a little girl across the street, Sarah. Sarah is very impactful to a lot of readers, and they will ask me, "Well, what happened to Sarah?" Because Sarah, disappears out of Lena's life early. It's in sort of a quick kind of traumatic way. She doesn't die. I mean, she just she's not in the neighborhood anymore. And people have asked me all the time, well, what happens to Sarah? And I said, well, if Sarah comes back, which is what I truly believe, if my characters come back, I'll write about them again. The sisters in Ugly Ways came back, and that's why I wrote, about taking after Muddia. So it's Muddia. I'm sorry, Muddia makes me say to correct people. I would Muddia, Muddia. Muddia. It's on the mud. Muddia. Muddia. That's just how we say it.
Who corrects you in saying?
Oh, the cat Muddia. She does. She's really pushy. She's really pushy, and she doesn't show up much, but she wants her name to be. It's the combination of mother dear, and Muddy is about as far from a mother dear as you can get. This selfish woman, doesn't think the sun comes up until she gets up, and she don't get up till 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So as far as she's concerned, the world is in darkness until she gets up.
Does Lena come back too?
Oh, girl, be be very, very careful of what you do in your early books. In Baby of the Family, when Sarah, her little friend, disappeared, I wrote one sentence, and I wish I had never written it. Do you know what the sentence was? Lena never sees Sarah again. Damn, why did I do that? So now she's back, but she can't run into Lena because they never see each other again. And if I did it, y'all would be the first ones to say, on page 100 and something, you say that they never see each other again. So I have to, I have to. So they know that they know.
But there has to be some way to explain that. Maybe back then she thought in her mind at that
If I
point.
had said she thought she'd never see Lena again, it would have been different. But I did not say. The narrator stated she never saw her again. Yeah, be very careful about the things that you say,
Very good advice.
especially about killing off characters and making blanket statements like that.
But they can come back as ghosts if you kill them.
Now that's the other thing that's paranormal. That really does work. You are right about that. You can do a lot of things with you can do a lot of things with ghosts. It's really a writing tool sort of.
How fun is it to write a ghost?
Oh my goodness.
And how did you write his voice? Was that a challenge? Herman.
Okay. Well, people say the ghost. I assume the ghost you're talking about is Herman. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. I know we need to look at the time. It was one of the things that made Herman such a wonderful character is that as a ghost, there's no time limit. He can look any way. He can do anything. He can be anything. He can be everywhere at the same time. He can be soft. There we go. He can be soft as mist. He can be hard as wood. He can, he can be. He knows things. Ghost has been. He's if he's not on the other side, he's been to the other side. And you always think of if you've been to the other side, you've learned certain things that we don't know on this side. And that's really what he was doing for Lena. He was really Lena's teacher. He was really Lena's guide. He loved Lena. So there was, lots of sex, and there was lots of expressions of sex, not just, expressions of love, not just sex, with him. He was gentle with her. He was her man. He wasn't for anybody else. He was for her.
Okay, just 2 minutes on the Bogart book.
And so I started noticing how people do kind of Bogart, and I realized there's a real sort of game to it, sort of, but it's not a mean game. You know, if you're trying to get over on somebody, it's not really a Bogart. What you're trying to do is sort of get something and give something. There's a reciprocity. There's no relationship without reciprocity. I don't know what I was giving to the woman who I Bogarted her plane, maybe nothing. But at any rate, there's usually something, and you get perks and you get contacts, and you speak up. And so I started thinking about this. I said, we really need a guide for this because I think black women, especially women of color, do this all the time. And we don't have a guide. We're just sort of doing it willy nilly kind of thing. And I said, we really need a guide, especially not just for women my age who have been doing it and didn't realize they were doing it, but especially for women your age and women who are younger than you, women who are younger than, because we don't have those grandmas, as Victor was saying. We don't have those, grandmothers probably not in the, I mean, I don't even know people, I don't know many people whose grandmothers and grandparents are in the same city that they are, so you don't have the person to guide you. Relationships between mothers and daughters now are different. The younger generation is very different. And as Victor said, people are on the phone now. They're not even talking. So we do need a guide to sort of encapsulate. And I'm always looking to promote conversation.
So the two books are going to come out under Down South Press.
Press, which is my publishing company. As I told earlier, and I want to tell other people this too. If you're a self-publisher and you're doing all the work to get your book out, think about incorporating and becoming a small publishing company. You might want to join another author and do that, because then you go from being a self-published author to, oh no, I'm not a self-published author. I'm published by a small publishing company called.
This is what I'm talking about. This wisdom that you're dropping right now, there's these golden nuggets that you're dropping right now, is people have come to expect that from you, respect you for that, and we look forward to seeing that book and anything else that you put out into the universe.
Pray for me about this book, because it's a small book, and I think, well, I really should be able to get it out. I should, but so I know that number one is time. As Herman always says, to every question that Lena asks, time, baby, time. So I mean, it's also about timing, but it's also about just getting it, not being fearful and getting it out. The fear thing just never seems to go away. I mean, it's something that you have to challenge all the time. It means that it goes away, but you
gotta push that voice back down and say, get away.
Okay. All right, it's been wonderful talking to you.
It was great to have you here. Thank you so much for your time. And Dreamcatchers, I hope you enjoyed this segment of our show with writer, author, filmmaker, teacher, Tina McElroy Ansa. And until Scorpio for all you Scorpions in the house, I'm sure you guys are going to love that. Anyway, thank you for joining us. And until next time, catch fire on purpose.
The color in my garden keeps the pink in my cheeks. I was very independent and thought I could take care of myself. I fell and I had to have Meals on Wheels. They're my savior. My name is Lola Silvestri. America, let's do lunch.
Drop off a hot meal and say hello. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.